Okay. It's recording. Where?
In the VT Seva parents.
VT Seva. Is it named VT Seva? Oh, here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay. There you go.
Cool. Yeah, my dad's teaching music.
Done. Posted it.
Okay, post it in the Instagram also, in case if you guys.
Post in the club group chat?
Uncle is doing right now.
That'll probably be
Okay. I disabled waiting room, so it should be fine, Srihari. But if there's people who try to get in,
Alright, Pranati, the reason we put it here is this.
getting there, getting there.
Oh,
Oh my god.
okay, no, well, Pranati, I'll take care.
I don't know if audio is working. Can someone join Zoom and check if you can hear Yoshi and I?
Okay, Zoom link పంపించింది దానిలోక Zoom link లోకి జాయిన్ అయ్యి
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm sure a lot of you saw there's a lot of traffic coming in because of Newcastle days and stuff. So a lot of people are stuck in traffic. Yeah, 4 or 5 is closed. A lot is happening. So we'll get started. But we're setting up a Zoom for people who can't join yet. In the meanwhile, I think some of you joined a little bit like after we did introductions. Can we have students introduce themselves, like what grade they're in, and what school, and then we'll have parents introduce themselves as well. Do we have any new students that didn't introduce themselves yet?
So, I'm Jay. I'm a senior at Intuit School. Yes.
I'm Anasia and I'm a senior at
Awesome. And then there's students we're missing. Okay, then there's a couple parents walk in. So do you want to introduce yourself?
We're parents of Atharva, who's a junior at Skyline.
Awesome.
Shanti, next one, he's in sophomore at Liberty.
Awesome.
And I'm Silvia and I'm
Nice.
It's coming good on Zoom.
Awesome. Okay. We can go ahead and get started then, Upendra uncle.
Okay. Welcome everyone. My name is Upender. As I said, I'm part of VT Seva organization. I'm volunteer along with Shanti Garute. Later on, if you have any questions about the organization itself, you can talk to us. You can talk to any of these volunteers. This particular session is our first in series about college application and college life. All 4 panelists who are sitting here, they have been associated with VT Seva for a long time. And they're now at UW. Again, before we start, this is not a recipe to get in. That's not what we're proposed to present here. There are no specific guidelines as to SAT range or GPA range. We have no idea, right? Best if you talk to the counselors at the university itself to get more information about that. This is more about like what is their road has been to UW, and then maybe what you can learn from that. Right? Some of it might be applicable to you, some of it might not be. But take it with whatever you feel like. We all have given some index cards along with pencils, so please make notes, ask questions. But please write down your questions because some of those might be answered as we go along in the when the panelists speak. If you don't get your question, then we'll take it up at the end of the seminar. There should be plenty of time for that. All right, any questions before we get started? Sorry for the delay. We had to set up some Zoom call.
Have the mic on. It's not recording. The
Oh,
voice
it's not.
very
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. We have come prepared with this one.
well.
Hopefully, there we go. Yeah, that works. So let's start off. I just want to start off with introduction of our panelists. These questions are common to all 4 of them. I'll briefly ask the questions and then I'll hand off the mic. Can each of you briefly introduce yourselves and your majors at the University of Washington? So briefly about yourself and about the majors. Second, what motivated you to choose your respective field of study? And of course, maybe most interesting to audience here is what has been your experience with the college application process, and why you choose University of Washington. So, start with Srihari first.
Well, one thing, well, can you turn off your video on the Zoom because it's like recording your face?
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I am Srihari. This is going to be my second year at the UW. I'm studying computer science. And yeah, I mean, I got into CS just because I like to solve problems, things of that nature. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess some of my hobbies are I like to code, obviously. I like to make music and play sports. And yeah, been at VT Seva for a while, and it's just nice to keep coming back to the community. So that's me.
Hi.
There you go.
My name's Aditi, and I'm going into my second year at UW. I'm also a computer science major. Since I was little, I always liked math and science, and in elementary school, I got involved with FLL robotics, which is First Lego League. So that was kind of my first introduction to the field. And then in middle school, I realized that I like to see things move and interact with them. So I took an Intro to C programming class over the summer, and I was able to code and control a toy car from my own iPhone. So seeing that move and interact, that was really, really appealing to me. So I got more involved in the field in high school, watched more YouTube videos, learned about app development, made some of my own, and kind of, using my own creativity to make apps that other people would use. That was something I wanted to do as a career. So I applied to 24 schools as a CS major. It's a lot of schools, but my approach was that if I apply to as many colleges as I can, I might maximize my chance of getting into, at least one like good school. Ultimately, I ended up choosing UW. Why I chose UW, I had a couple of options. I had UW CS. I considered UC Berkeley for their electrical engineering and computer science program. And I also considered Rice University and Duke University. We can talk about the factors for selecting colleges later during the seminar, but I ended up choosing UW mostly for the in-state tuition, as well as the quality of the Allen School here. I mean, it's top 10. You can't really beat that, but also the in-state tuition was very appealing. So that's why I chose UW, and I couldn't be happier.
Hello, my name is Pranati. I'm going into my final year at UW. I am studying business administration and I'm a pre-med, so pretty unconventional, with a minor in bioethics. I have been interested in healthcare since middle school. I was always a science geek. But as I explored Running Start and as I started taking more classes, learning about how the world works, I realized that in this country, healthcare is more of a commodity than an actual care for populations. So my hope is to combine my two areas of focus and create a system or try to reform a system where public health is truly benefiting the public and not the private companies. And then why I chose UW, I think we'll also get into like factors of what universities you choose later on, but it ended up being the best school for me to combine two degrees that were very opposite, being able to do an interdisciplinary education, and like Aditi mentioned, being in-state and also being a top 10 public school nationally was very appealing.
Hello everyone, my name is Yashita and I am going to UW as a free sciences major, which is basically in the School of Arts and Sciences, and then you can go and apply for whatever major you want whenever you finish the prereqs for that specific major. So you could say that I'm going in as general or undecided, as you might know more popularly. I did want to do informatics and I did apply as an informatics student, but I didn't get in direct into the program. So I'm going in as pre-sciences and hoping to apply again and get into the informatics program. Why I chose informatics was, well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do medical before, but then I realized through Running Start and I didn't want to do it because I got to explore the field. And then I think tech was my next option. But in tech, I was like CS or info, right? And through my nonprofit work and also taking computer science courses at school, and as I started to develop apps on my own and sort of go into the creating process, I realized how important information and data was to like understand the population and like the group of people that you're trying to help and trying to make this product for. And I thought that was super interesting. And informatics is such a diverse field. So I just thought it was super cool how you could choose like literally anything and learn about so many things in the tech industry and also learn about people in business all within one degree. And so that's why I hope to pursue informatics. And why I chose UW, you can ask anyone. I was like the person that was like, I'm never going to UW, I'm not going. I wanted to go out of state so badly. And I applied to many schools just like Aditi. And I got into my like info major in out of state schools that I wanted to go to too. But when it came down to choosing like a college, again, like the fees was a major factor you'll realize. And then also when I went to Admitted Students Day, it just like showed me how important it is to like get hands-on and like really learn about the college, because when I got to like experience it in person and I got to like learn the info, like how the iSchool works, information school works, and how UW teaches, it was super appealing to me. And I was like, even if I didn't get in, even if I got in like general, I really like the program to the point where I'm gonna still accept and hopefully pursue informatics. So yeah.
So
Thanks, folks. Yeah, I think that's a great introduction. I hope that gives a little bit insight into their application process. I think next set of questions are sort of tied to a few folks here who are in a particular program. So we'll pick up the computer science program first and ask questions to the panelists and go from there. See this one. This question is for Aditi. So I know you've been involved in quite a bit of extracurricular activities, both at high school and also even now at UW, being part of the mock trial team and also part of the South Asian Student Association. But during the application process, like how did you manage to balance between your extracurricular activities and projects, and which one of those projects do you think helped your application to stand out?
Yeah, so in high school, I got as involved as I could. I was on the mock trial team in high school, and I'm actually continuing it at UW too, just out of pure interest. I don't plan to go to law school, but it's just something I do in my free time. And I think that's something to consider, right? Even if something's not directly related to your major, having a genuine interest in it, sticking with it, working to a leadership position, and then making an impact. So in high school, I served as the VP of the team, and we led our team. We were a public school, and we led our team to place top second in the state, which was actually record breaking, because in the mock trial system in Washington, throughout history, the top two teams, they've been private schools coached by, lawyers and people from that field. So we were able to self-teach ourselves and break that record. So that was something I was able to talk about in my application. I'd say something unique that really helped me stand out is I learned the Tamil language for over a decade. So this is an interesting story. So by blood, my family speaks Telugu, but in India, we live in Tamil Nadu. So every time I went there for vacation, I'd always struggle to, speak with the neighbors there. I had trouble making friends because I didn't understand Tamil and I couldn't speak it. So I really had a motivation, like by the time I come back to India next summer or in the future, I want to be able to master this language and show people what I'm made of. So I actually asked my mom to enroll me in Tamil school here in Redmond. And I started when I was 5 years old, and I started learning the language, basic reading, writing, and then it became more advanced and advanced. And I kept going, and I noticed that other people were dropping out, and it came to a point where in the upper grades, I was the only student left, and some teachers would come just to teach me every Sunday, right? So that was kind of sad because I didn't have like any friends in the school. I was just doing this out of pure interest, and it was sad that other people would judge me. They'd be like, even aunties, they'd be like, Aditi, I don't know why you're studying Tamil every Sunday. You can do math bowl, science bowl. But this was a genuine interest of mine, and I wanted to prove to people in India the next time that I could speak. So I graduated from that academy. I was actually the first non-native speaker to graduate nationwide. So that was something I was able to talk about in my applications. That was unique and made me stand out. And I came back, I started teaching Tamil to other students, and using my CS knowledge, I made an app for students during COVID to learn Tamil vocabulary, kind of like Duolingo, but not to that scale, obviously. But it was something I was able to do. I was able to publish it and distribute it to Tamil schools on the West Coast. So that was actually what my personal statement was about. And I think, yes, making an app is important, but it's more important why you make it and what impact it has. So that's just an example of a CS related impact I had. Yeah, and I've been involved with VT Seva. I've served as the vice president, did a coding camp through this program. I can talk more about that later during this seminar. And yeah, there were a few other personal projects. Do I have time, Auntie? Can I take another minute? Okay. So yeah, I joined a startup accelerator program where I was able to pitch an app idea I had. So the inspiration for this app, during junior year of high school, my dad was trimming bushes in our backyard using a hedge trimmer, and he actually accidentally deeply severed a few of his fingers when he was cutting it. And he lost a lot of blood and he actually passed out. So by the time the EMTs came to my house, my dad was unresponsive. So the EMTs needed information like, does your dad have allergies? What was his past medical history? My dad couldn't answer those questions, so they asked me. Thankfully, I answered them mostly, but part of me was like, I'm not sure if I'm actually saying everything I need to say, because what if they give him some medication and he has an allergic reaction, right? So that was a communication gap I noticed in the medical industry, and I wanted to address that. So I joined this startup accelerator program and pitched an app where it uses like Bluetooth technology to transfer like the patient's up-to-date medical history from their phone to the EMT's device using encryption. So you're ensuring patient security while you're doing that. So that was something I did. We pitched it and it placed second nationwide. So that was something I was able to talk about as well. So yeah, I'd say for CS programs in particular, yes, making an app is a good idea, but it's more about why you choose to do it. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. So as you see, right, I think what probably separated the Aditi's application from others is just connecting her everyday life experiences with the application process, right? It's not just doing the app for the sake of app or doing a project for the sake of project, right? So trying to find something which is a real problem in your own life and trying to address that, right? And showing off at least your skills as part of that process. So that's what I think enabled, we believe, right? Because a lot of these things are very opaque. We don't know what goes into the application, but this is one hint. Yeah. Actually, same question for Srihari also. Like, what specific skills and knowledge did you find most valuable, right? When you're applying for college, is this something which you've learned at high school, or is it something you picked up outside through other organizations when you're volunteering, or like what are the specific skills and knowledge which actually helped your application process?
Yeah, so as far as like writing a good application, like on the writing side, you definitely want to look into like what changed you as a person. Like if you mentioned that experience with her dad, right? And it was probably a really pivotal thing. You really want to look at what changed you and what's important to you, because as Bandar Uncle said, right, the honest things that happen in your life are often like the most valuable things. So you really want to like tap into that and look at what the most impactful things were from a writing standpoint. And that's really how you should think about that whole process of like, how should I answer this question? Let's be as authentic as we can and be as meaningful as we can with this response. And if we have like, something like a contribution that came from that, that's awesome, right? But you want to make sure you stay really authentic, because the moment you try to go away from what's true to yourself, like people can see through that. And I promise you, it makes a better essay when you write about things that are true to yourself rather than trying to like go and write about some other things that don't really resonate with you. Like people can see through that. So really huge thing there. As far as like what I think were like what's good to have to get into college, you mentioned a lot of great stuff when it comes to like coding. And again, like I said, right, you time that with your life. Leadership is also a big thing. I mean, obviously here at VT Seva, like we're volunteers, right? But leadership is a pretty huge thing. Like one thing I tapped into in my application specifically was, and this goes with the theme of like what changed you as a person, right? Was literally my first time doing anything like big or at scale was here at VT Seva. I started like a sports like mini like sub hat, yeah, like camp under VT Seva, and like we basically went and started doing camps with like multiple sports during COVID. And it's like that might not even be the most flashy thing, but for me, I look back on that and I'm like, man, that's really what made me me. Like if you really think about it, it's like that's low-key where it all started. And that's when my mentality changed. I was like, okay, I want to start leading things. I want to start putting things together. And it's like ultimately as an engineer, right? As like a computer science person, you love to build things. And even though this isn't building things on like a hard technical level, there's a lot of parallels you can draw between those two. And that was also an authentic experience. So that was honestly like a really big part of my application was that. And obviously you want technical things, right? Things that apply to your major. I will say a really common mistake that a lot of people make is a lot of people will just have straight, like for CS, right? They'll just have straight coding experiences like, oh, I did this, 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 and this. And while it's awesome to have coding experiences, like Athi said, you want to have really meaningful experiences that are like, they pertain to your major, like a lot of the things that she talked about, right? But you also want to have some variety in there, right? They don't want to just hire someone, or they don't just want to, you know, bring someone into their college that's like, doesn't really do anything other than just head down, you know, just code or anything. You want a well-rounded person that's really just a solid person and a solid addition to your community, right? Because if you think about it, it's like, well, the whole like school here is just a community of people that were here to represent this college. So how can I bring in the most well-rounded people that are going to represent this the best and bring the most value to this environment? And that's not necessarily how good are you technically, because you're going to college to learn how to be good technically, right? But it's how good are you like authentically, like how much of a difference maker are you? How much of a change maker are you? How much can you put things together? How much can you bring people together? And that's why I say leadership is like really important, just right up there with how good you are like technical acuity wise. And yeah, other than that, I mean, those are really the big things. Volunteering is always huge. I mean, they ask a lot about volunteering experience. Luckily, we have VT Seva, so you can really deeply get into that and like find yourself as like a volunteer and really grow in a meaningful way in that department. And yeah, those were really the most like important facets of my application, I would say. And you can find those themes in a lot of applications. One last thing I will say to top this off is you want to try to find like bringing this back to a writing standpoint, you want to find creative ways to embed these themes in there. Like it's great to be like, oh yeah, man, like I grew as a leader because I did this, this, and this. It doesn't hurt to add a little bit of like symbolism and imagery. Like don't get too crazy with it. Like, I mean, there are bits of essays I've read that's like, man, you're probably going a little too far, but it's always great to find like a good metaphor. Like for me, what my personal statement was, and I remember a lot of people like specifically hated that I did this, like my parents included, but I thought it worked because I like to make music a lot. And I started like producing music like really early in high school, like much to my parents' dismay, right? But I was like, I can low-key just use this as like a tie-in in my essay, because making music is the same thing as making anything. You're making parts to a whole, everything has its job. And I was able to tie in leadership with that, right? Because you're trying to communicate things clearly so everyone knows their role, contributes to the organization. And same goes with CS, right? Or just any technical thing, like parts make a whole, basically. And yeah, I would say those three things are really big to keep in mind. You want to really try to present those authentic things to you in a way that's impactful to the reader. And once you've done that, I mean, you have a pretty good looking application. But yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Srihari. I remember, I think one of the summers, Srihari actually conducted a cricket camp. So that was like a huge success for not just for VT Seva, actually.
Specifically during COVID, that is the first session where people started coming out. We were all very scared that maybe it's gonna do something, and he was the one made all of us agree, come into his terms. That is where those leadership skills, and more than 100+ people have joined that cricket camp during COVID. People were desperate to come out and play, so everybody joined. Good job.
And that was the first camp, actually.
That's
First
the
sports camp we ever did, right? It's not like there is a blueprint out there, which, Srihari followed. In a way, he has set up the blueprint for us, right? So I think that's really appreciated. Yeah, thank you. I think moving on to second of the themes, which is not necessarily one discipline. Some people are interested in multidisciplinary fields. So Pranati is no exception to that. It's not just college, like even before college, right? If you look at her journey, like she's been VT Seva National Volunteer Coordinator, lead for national volunteer events, youth events, like Limitless and Boundless. So from early on, she's already into this multidiscipline, like she's, navigating multiple things at the same time. So somehow she has developed that knack, and she's continuing that in the college. So I have a question on that, like based on people who might be interested in pursuing something similar. What are the specific challenges you faced while preparing to be a college student of two diverse fields, right? There's a pre-med, there's a business, like in some way, if you're running a hospital, yes, it makes sense, but early on, it's totally different fields. So any challenges you face and how did you overcome them? So, yeah.
I will try to stay pretty broad in the multidisciplinary aspect, because I know not everyone wants to combine business and pre-med specifically, but if you want to chat about pre-med specifically later, I'm happy to do that in the open Q&A or privately later. Something that Aditi and Srihari kind of touched on that I really want to emphasize about college applications, like Srihari mentioned, the college's job is to train you to become a professional. Your job is to show them that you're growing as an adult, as a person, you have a unique personality. And so for me, it was difficult to find a school that was great for two completely different career paths, but B, also a school where I could still thrive in those different career paths. So I would say things I primarily looked for off the bat. I looked at public schools. I know that there's a mindset of wanting to go to a top 20, top 10 private school, which is great. A lot of private schools do encourage multidisciplinary education, but a lot of public schools are actually easier to do that. The reason I say that is once you get into the school, everyone's there. So now your main difficulty is, how do I get my coursework done? So I did a lot of research with people who are going to the prospective schools I was looking at. I called them, I interviewed them, I asked them, what does a day in your life look like? What majors are you doing? If you're doing double majors, how many hours are you in class? How many hours are you outside of class? Is your homework manageable? So I would really encourage things like that. If you're looking for a multidisciplinary education off the bat, or even if you don't know that you want to do two different majors, but you want the option open to you, I would highly encourage you make those selection criteria on your college list from the beginning. Yeah, I think what was most helpful for me was talking to students who are on those campuses, because college is a business. So the websites will always advertise that we do everything, but the students are the ones that are the best advocates for, is this really practical or not? So for UW, I actually didn't decide to go to UW until 4 days before the decision deadline. I was actually going to go to a different top 10 school that I got a scholarship from. But what really made me come to UW was I had called a student that went to that school, and I asked them, can I do business and pre-med together? And she said, frankly, no, you're going to end up having to pick between one or the two of them, because you just can't overlap those courses. And when I talked to someone at UW, they were like, totally, like there's no restrictions against how many pre-med classes you need to do, how many business classes you need to do. So it'll be a lot easier for you here. So I guess that was my biggest challenge, making sure that my coursework would actually support me in my endeavor to do the two. And then because I'm doing two majors that are opposite, obviously I'm going to lose out on some of the networking opportunities. If I was fully business, I would have like all the resources through my professors for the internships. If I was fully pre-med, all my friends would be able to help me find research opportunities. Because I was splitting my time between the two, I wanted to make sure there was enough clubs that could supplement what I was missing from my classes, if that makes sense. So right now, since I'm pre-med in business, I can't take a lot of the upper division biology classes because I don't have time for those. So I lean on pre-health fraternities or pre-health clubs at UW to help supplement those networking opportunities. So it might seem like you're jumping the gun, but I would recommend looking at clubs at the universities you're applying to and seeing if those clubs are also ways that you can gain access to opportunities, kind of tying along with that, what city your university is located in. Seattle is obviously a great city for both business and for pre-med. So all of those factors kind of played into my decision matrix.
Keep the mic. Next
Okay.
question is also to you. I know you've been involved with VT Seva for a long time, and I know it's busy. You talked quite a bit about like your current college experience, but I want to go back a little bit and see what the application process has been. So in your high school, how did you balance your coursework, your VT Seva activities, and I know you were in robotics and other activities too. So how did you end up balancing all of those? And were these by your choice, or even the activities you're picking, were they based on what program you want to go into, or it's actually truly what you believe in and what you love to do? So.
This is a great question because I actually don't think I did this the right way when I was in high school. I think I did things the wrong way, and I learned a lot from that. So like Upendra Uncle mentioned earlier, I love everything. Like I have so many different interests. I just love to learn. So throughout high school, I couldn't really narrow down what was useful for me and what wasn't. And because of that, I signed up for everything. I'm so lucky that my parents made it so I had access to a lot of opportunities. But I didn't end up saying no to anything, which on paper might look great. Like I know you guys hear about these students who apply to these schools and have like 20 plus activities on their Common App and all these different things. I was one of them. It burnt me out, to be really honest. I did robotics for 8 years. I did DECA, a business program, for 4 years. This is my 9th year of VT Seva. And while they all taught me really important things, one thing I'd really recommend is be intentional with what you say yes to. 30 years down the line, it's not going to matter that you did 20 activities in high school. It's going to matter, did you really explore what interested you? And kind of like what Aditi and Srihari mentioned, they're looking to see what makes you unique. So if you don't want to do a club, but you have heard that it's better for college admissions that you do it, don't do the club. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to write something meaningful from that experience if you weren't passionate about it. So that's what I would say. I learned it the hard way in high school that saying yes to everything will come back to bite you in the butt. You need to say yes to things that you're excited to do. That way, even if you have a busy schedule, you're looking forward to doing them. That's what I also use in college right now. Being from 2 different majors with a lot of stuff on my plate, I only say yes to opportunities that keep making me happy, so I don't feel like I'm working. It feels fun for me. And I think, what was the second part of your question? Or did I answer both of them?
You answered it. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I would say balance with things that you really care about. Like what Aditi was saying, she decided to do an app that was in the medical field. She didn't really express any interest to go into medicine, but that was something that was really important to her. So say yes to what you're passionate about, and don't be afraid to say no to things that other people are telling you are important for college, but you don't feel passionately about.
Next set of questions for Yashi. But before I go, I want to stress on what Praniti mentioned. This is for parents. Don't force your kids to be in multiple, of these projects or groups or, volunteer organizations or events. They will get burnt out and they will not learn anything in the process. I have 2 kids who I have 3 kids. 2 kids already graduated from UW. They're doing very well. They hardly did one. Right? Just VT Seva, that's it. Like, so pick whatever organization, right? Go deep in that, right? If they're interested in chess, go deep in that. Whatever interest. I know a family who's like, kids are interested in golf. I've never heard of Indian family who's doing golf, right? But they're interested and they're pursuing. They're like, so the best thing is you see for 6 months, kids are really interested, go deep, right? Go deep in that, right? That's what I'm doing with Pranav here. He's my youngest. He's very much interested in music. I don't know what he's going to do. He hasn't picked a program, like what college he's going to do or what bachelor's he's going to do. I really don't care. He's happy, so he's pursuing that. So anyway, so brief shell there. Yeah, so Ishi, I think your experience is also pretty unique because you are going in with a running start, which is for folks who are new to Washington State. It's a program where 11th and 12th, you can go to community college and get college credits. And all those by law have to be taken by UW, Washington State University, Western Washington, any public school. They have to take those credits. Right? So I think she did a full 2-year running start, 11th and 12th, full time. So I wanted to ask you, like, what's your personal experience with that program? And do you think it benefited your college application process or any insights you have on that?
Yeah, so running start, I did, most people, at least when I was first, deciding, so you basically decide if you're doing running start in your end of your 10th grade year, because you can, if you want to do full-time running start, which is basically you earn a associate's degree at the end of the 2 years, so junior and senior year. So when you're choosing that, most people were just like, oh yeah, I'm doing it because I know I want to stay in state. I know I want to like graduate as early as possible, because once you have those 2 years, you can basically finish college, a 4-year degree in 2 years and be done with it. But the main reason why I did it was because, one, in school, I didn't have a lot of opportunities to explore, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it was more of an exploration process for me, and just also like get a head start in the college, environment. So for me, it was really helpful because basically my first year I was like interested in medical. And so I took like a bunch of chemistry and biology classes, and I soon figured out that I didn't want to do it. Like, I didn't want to do this for the next 8 years of my life. I'm not doing it, which helped because then I was able to explore in the field of tech and of informatics in my second year, where I took more technical courses, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I want to continue on with this, which I know I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity in high school. I mean, high school has like AP Chem and AP this, but it's like a whole year class, whereas like I took 3 Chem classes in like a year. So it was just like that. Personally, it was better. It was definitely more challenging. Like the first quarter adjusting was pretty hard. You'll face some bad grades, but I still graduated with like a 3.9 GPA because you're taking more classes, so it weighs out your GPA that way. Anyways, but yeah, and like I said, I wanted to go out of state, right? I didn't want to stay in state, so I wasn't one of those people that were like, oh, I'm gonna get it so I can finish college 2 years earlier. Because it's basically the credits will transfer out of state, but not all of them. It's like uncertain how many will. But I did end up going to UW, and I'm at a junior standing, which is basically I'm at a 3rd year level standing. When I'm a freshman, I'm at 1st year going in. So that's really cool to see. And especially not being directly in my major, it's really helpful because now I can focus on getting those prereqs in rather than the general requirements. And also you get classes easier because you're put at a higher standing. But yeah, I think it was really helpful in just like exploring and also getting used to how college looks like. Like now going to UW is not scary anymore to me. It's just exciting. And I think it's a really good opportunity if you're ready for it. I would say if you just want to do it to like finish college 2 years earlier, I don't recommend that because everyone goes on their educational journey at a different pace. And if you feel like you can't handle that, then don't. But yeah, that was kind of my experience with Running Start and how it was helpful to me. If you do want to go out of state, I heard from my other friends that are choosing to go out of state that their credits did transfer to like California schools. So that's just another thing to keep in mind, that even if you do want to go out of state, it's a good opportunity for you to, it's not just an in-state opportunity.
Thanks, Ishi. A few more points I want to add there. All of California schools, they have a Bellevue, like for example, if you go to Bellevue College, they have a Bellevue College equivalency. So you can actually go and check what courses can transfer and cannot transfer, right? So that way you have peace of mind that even if you take college courses, they can transfer. Yes. You'll save at least 1 year if you can do full-time running start here.
We'll have links to the resources later on. So if you're like interested in exploring what Running Start is, for those of you that are still in 9th grade, I think 10th grade is like the last year that you can decide. So we'll send out resource links to explore what she means by 3 classes in 1 year, things like that.
Even if you go like 1 year in California, it's like $70,000. That's a huge savings too, right? When you're talking about it. One additional thing, like most community colleges have a lot more electives. So if the kids are interested, I mean, there's pottery classes, there's like photography classes, like, all sorts of classes, right? You can choose from a lot more electives than compared to high school, right? So that's another advantage. Great, and the last one is, which I thought very interesting, like they use exactly the same software as UW, and they're on the quarter system. So same canvas, like if you go there, it's like a seamless transition, like, in terms of what instructors use and what you end up using at home for homeworks and stuff like that. So cool. These are specific questions for panelists, and then we have now sort of common college experience questions. This, I hope, everybody take turn to answer this one. I want to go back on the your role in VT Seva and how it helped develop valuable life skills that boosted your college application or your current college experience. Right? If you can briefly talk about that, and then keep passing the mic. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I kind of shaded on this already a little bit, but I started like a series of sports camps, basically, right? And what that did for me is it really taught me how to put things together. Like if you have a vision, it really taught me that you can get it done, like no matter what the obstacles are, because it wasn't like an easy environment to do these things. I mean, we were literally hanging on by like a thread. Like we had one COVID case, it was wraps for the whole thing. So it really taught me that if you have faith, like if you really want something, put everything into it and like it'll happen somehow, some way. And also from a leadership standpoint, like I really learned a lot. Talking to like coaches, making sure everybody knew like what the plans were for the day. There was also like multiple sports that we were doing. So how to like operate differently between those two, understand things from a situational aspect, just made me a little bit better on my feet thinker too. When you're coordinating things in real time, you have to like, take care of essentially like a lot of kids. There's a lot of responsibility on your hands. And a lot of parents are looking at you to make the right decisions. Also kind of taught me to have like a cool head in certain situations. And yeah, it was just really valuable for me in that sense. After that, the following year, I was co-president of VT Seva Seattle. I will say, honestly, in that role, I didn't like have that much of an impact as I had just coordinating the sports aspect of things. But again, with that comes a lot of like oversight with the organization. Like you're looking at high level priorities. How do we run things? How do we motivate people? And yeah, a lot of those skills, in fact, like all of those skills people are looking for in college, right? Because it comes back to what I said, how much of a change maker are you, what's your value that you contribute to the organization that is UW or whatever college you want to go to. So ultimately it just taught me how to create value and how to really like motivate people and try to get the best out of them. And that is such an important thing. Like if you're in a team in any point in your life, it's like, how can I truly like get the best out of my like teammates and really pull everyone together here? And I promise you, every college is looking for that. So yeah, leadership, like I said, big thing. And VT Seva was great for me for that. So yeah.
Similar to Shrihari, during COVID, I had the opportunity to start a coding camp here through VT Seva. It was called Coding with Compassion, and I was able to work alongside adult volunteers in VT Seva as well as other youth volunteers, where we made coding curriculums for beginner and intermediate students in various languages. And people all over the nation, joined. It was through Zoom sessions. So that was an impact I was able to make. And I learned a lot, handling logistics and communicating with adults versus kids. Like, you need a different language and tone when you're dealing with different groups of people. And that's a lesson I learned going into college, as well as internships I pursued later on. So that was a valuable life skill. And overall, just organizational skills as well, running things with different parts. You need to be organized. It's a lot. So, planning things accordingly, setting deadlines. I learned all those valuable skills. And if any of you have any passion project idea, or you want to start something, VT Seva is a great place to start. And there's a great network here, and people are willing to support you. And there are so many other youth who want volunteering opportunities as well. So this is a great place to start.
Kind of like Aditi and Srihari mentioned, just to promo a little bit for VT Seva, we do something called Own Your Adventure. So if you have an idea that you want to see come to life, you want to do it, but you don't have the resources for it, what we do here at VT Seva is we provide you the resources to execute what you needed. So Srihari came to the exec board at the time, pitched his idea for his sports camps, recruited his own team and executed them. We provided the resources for that. Aditi did something similar with the coding camps. So if you're looking for an opportunity to explore, we have a couple youth in the audience who've already done that as well. If you're looking for an opportunity to explore a passion you have, but you don't have the people, the resources, the network yet, VT Seva is a great place to do that. That also kind of ties into what I wanted to share. I'm going on my 9th or 10th year at VT Seva, and I'm really fortunate to have a national board position right now. I'm the National Volunteer Coordinator, which basically means I welcome in new volunteers across the country for VT Seva. I've also had opportunities to lead national youth projects that have had 200 to 300 people attend and put those together. The reason I'm sharing that is I had to advocate for those. And what I really appreciate about VT Seva is if you stand up and ask for something, you won't get a no, most likely, but you need to learn to ask for it in the first place. The fact that all of you are sitting here means you have wonderful parents who are looking out and finding you opportunities of how to grow yourself and push yourself. And that's great. Our parents are always great on giving us access to different opportunities, but the real world's not like that. You don't get things handed to you on a silver platter in the real world. And so VT Seva taught me that I could just come to the meetings, sit there on the weekends, get my bare minimum volunteer hours and leave, or I could step up, advocate for what my skill set was, and advocate for better opportunities for myself. So because I advocated that I really like sharing the mission of the organization, I want to encourage more people to join, I got to become the National Volunteer Coordinator. And so that's something that I think is unique to VT Seva that really taught me a lot in college. I'm not one to go advocate for myself in most situations because I fear the answer no, but it really taught me even for college now that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. But if you ask, the opportunities are endless. So I think that's what I really took away from VT Seva.
Yeah, so for me, I don't even know how many years I've been part of VT Seva, but my main journey and core journey with VT Seva started in my year, summer before freshman year. I went to the VT Seva internship in India with a few of my friends and other US volunteers. And, I got to experience and talk to and kind of get to know the people that we fundraise for, the people that we work for and, are passionate about in VT Seva. And I think that was a great starting point for me, because then that's what kept me in VT Seva throughout my entirety of high school, because I knew sort of the core of this organization and I was passionate about that. I was emotionally connected with it, which helped me continue this and stay passionate about it. So I think for me, a bit differently was it helped me kind of create my story, and it was a main pillar of just myself, when we're talking about the application process that I truly believed in was VT Seva, and because I was so emotionally connected with it, and I was able to also take on leadership positions and grow in the youth board that we had over 4 years, that I was able to find a passion, find how to become a leader, and just kind of create this story of me and my personality through that, and showcase that to the admissions officers, and it was sort of like my community service aspect of it, and not just, oh, going and like volunteering and getting hours for it, but showing how like this was a really important thing for me that I will continue, that I will bring into UW, that you know, I've learned a lot from and grown personally, and also just learned how to give back to the community. So,
Cool. Let me grab that. Thanks, folks. That's really awesome. This reminded me of, so I work at Microsoft. One of the things they keep asking me, not me in general, but in a team setting is, hey, what's your brand, right? When people think about you, what do they think about? Like, what are you known for, right? You have to make that mark. And all of them have really made that throughout their 6, 7, 9 years of volunteering. Again, it doesn't have to be VT Seva, like any organization you pick, but make that mark. It's not just the studies, it's, you know, what else you can do for the society at large, right?
I think, I don't want to interrupt, but since we've been there, we give a great transition for it. So you already mentioned this earlier too, but one huge thing that I think really made me a unique applicant from other people is I didn't make my college application a showcase of all my accomplishments. I made it a showcase of what my brand is, because that's what colleges are looking for. They're looking for who are you, not what are the 20 different medals you've won. So if you're still early on in your process, or I know we have a couple people who are seniors who are writing their essays right now, I highly, highly recommend take a look at your entire application, including your Common App essays and everything. Make sure that conveys your brand more than your accomplishments. I think that's what'll help you stand out. I think my panelists agree with that too.
And this is exactly what companies are also looking for when they hire somebody, right? So these are valuable life skills.
Can I add one thing, Uncle?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So adding on to the personal branding that Pranati said, I have a tip for you guys. So if you can look at all your activities and think of one sentence that ties everything together and put that sentence somewhere, somehow on your personal statement. So I described some of my activities earlier today, and my personal pitch statement was, I want to use technology to create solutions that bridge communication gaps in our society. So these communication gaps can be linguistic, like the Tamil app I mentioned. It can be in the medical field, like the other software I pitched. It can be in the legal field. I do mock trial advocating for clients. That's also bridging the communication gap. So that was one sentence. It took a while for me to figure it out, but once I tied it all together, I just put it in kind of in the last paragraph of my personal statement, and it really helps tie things together. So that's a tip I have.
You can start that as early as possible. You don't have to be doing your application to look for that sentence. In fact, if you start it from 9th grade onwards and you keep that sentence in your mind, it helps you be more intentional with what things you sign up for as well, staying true to your brand.
It's fascinating to, you know, hear them. I don't want to speak anymore. But yeah, we have a few more questions, and then we'll take any audience questions. This is about delicate subject, parent and child perspective. So you'll hear unfiltered, unbiased opinion of these kids. And some of their parents are here in the audience, so we'll see. Let's see what happens. There's fireworks going to flow. First question, how can parents best support their children throughout the college application process and transition to university life? Who wants to take up this one?
I wish my dad were here to listen to this.
It's on recording. So.
He's recording, he'll watch it later. Like I mentioned, we all know the fact that you're here means you have amazing parents who want the best for you. Now, speaking to the parents, I know you want the best for your child, but don't help them fall into the same social pressures and stigmas that tend to flow in a lot of the communities we live in. It's amazing to want your kid to go to a top 20, top 10 Ivy League school. That's great. But that shouldn't be your priority. Your priority should be to find a school that works best for your child. And that may not be a top 10, top 20 school. It took me 4 months in my application process to convey to my parents that although I was getting offers from top 10, top 20 schools, they weren't the best fit for me. And by me, I mean my personal brand. Who am I as a person? Am I an extrovert? Am I an introvert? Do I like to socialize? Do I not like to socialize? College is great to train you into an adult to work in the workforce, but you can do that anywhere. You can get an education anywhere. When you're picking a school for your child, you're picking an environment that will shape who they are as a person for the rest of their life. Do you want that to be a toxic environment where academics is the only priority? Do you want that to be an extremely social environment where they don't know how to prioritize the important things in their life? Or do you want that to be an environment where they'll learn to balance both? Where they will be surrounded by people who know how to balance both? So that would be my number one goal. Don't fall into the US News top 10 schools list, things like that. Really start from the ground up and create your own list of what your child's personality traits are and what schools reflect those.
I want to talk more on like the application process as a family. So when I'm not gonna let my parents read my essays, and I was just like scared of their opinion and just things like that. And it's okay if your child's saying that, please just respect that and trust them. They're, we're all here because you want to learn, you want to go to the college that, makes you be the best version of yourself. So your child is motivated for that, and please trust your child for that. It's hard because, you really want the best for your child and you want to know like if they're doing everything on time and everything, but trust that they're going through their process the way that they need to. The thing that I think that parents could help the most in is really providing those resources. For example, like essay readers, like you might know some colleagues or some family friends that are, good at English, or have like students that have already gone to college, gone through the process. Provide them with resources like that, or with like alumni that they could talk to, or just like different resources that can help them through the process that they can reach out to on their own and sort of like talk to what their personal needs are. But don't be on their head 24/7, like, did you write this part of your essay? Like, are you done? Like, this is so late. Or like sometimes like I would sit down for like 2 hours and only write a sentence because it's that hard, because you as a student, you care so much about your essays and who it's really like a self-discovery journey. And that's not easy for someone that's like 17, 18 years old. Like, it's really hard. So just respect that and trust them that whatever content that they come up with is like their true self, and just help them through the process and provide the resources that they need to do it rather than stressing them out.
Yeah. Be their guide, not their referee.
Feed them well too. My mom made the best food when I was in my college application process, but kids need energy. Adding on to what Yashita said, if you're a student here and you have an idea of what to write for your personal statement or your supplements, there will be people out there who say, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it'll get you in. I've never seen this, be executed before. Take it with a grain of salt, right? People have different experiences. What works for them may not work for you, and vice versa. So stay true to your activities, and the more genuine you are, as Sri Hari mentioned earlier, the more successful you'll be in the process.
Yep. A couple things I want to tack on here. I think you made a great point about staying true to yourself. I want to talk about college coaches. A lot of parents, mine included, are like, oh, I want my kid to have a college coach that can like read through their essays, things like that. My personal stance, not really necessary. I mean, my college coach was like pretty unhelpful, so maybe that's just me, but I don't know. It's as long as you have like a couple of trusted people, or like Yoshi said, have faith in your kid, right? Like if they want to write it themselves, just let them go for it. But I don't think it's really necessary to shell out like a lot of money for somebody who's, it's possible they could be not that effective, or it's possible they can be like kind of effective, but I don't really think it's all that. The second thing I want to touch on is the actual like things that your kid is going to do through high school. So a little like before like the college application process, right? I know a lot of parents are thinking about, well, I want to put my kid in this club, in this club, in this club. And I know we've talked about that before a little bit too, but I just want to say like my parents never forced me to do anything, like not one thing. And it's not like, keep in mind, like even in the early stages of high school, I wasn't even taking that much initiative myself to do things, but I learned through the environment that I was in what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And the thing that I'm most proud of in high school is that like I built my brand myself because I knew what I wanted to do and I figured it out by just being out there. So I will say, like, don't force your kid to do something that they like really don't want to do or you just can't see aligning with them. You got to let them find themselves a little bit and just have some faith in them. And also, like, look, we're in such a great environment. It's like, it's really like at some point you will run into someone that inspires you and you'll end up doing something great because of that. But just trust the environment that you're in and trust like your kid themselves that something great will happen. I promise you, there's really no great need to like force them to do anything. And yeah, things will pan out.
Thanks, folks. Yeah. One last question we had before we take up was, I think this was partly answered before. What are the important factors we should consider when choosing a college? And I think I remember Pranati mentioning something about interdisciplinary and things like that. Anything else you want to add when choosing a college, which we haven't already touched upon?
Yeah, so as Pranati mentioned before, prestige is always nice. You know, it sounds fancy from a far distance, but it's not for everyone, right? You know, growing up, academics was very important in my family, and I always thought my mom wanted me to go to like a top 10 school. Ivy Day rolled around, I got roasted by every Ivy League. I got into Duke, so I automatically thought, okay, my mom would want me to go here. So I went up to her and I was like, look, I got in, I'll commit, let's go to Madras, there's a corner to celebrate, let's close the deal. And she looks at me and she's like, I don't think I want you to do that. And I was actually shocked. I was like, wow, she doesn't want me to go to Duke, that's crazy. And she was like, are you sure it's the right fit for you? You said you want to study computer science. Based on all the schools you got into, is Duke really the best for what you want to do? And did you look into the class sizes there, the tuition? So that's when, you know, we visited everything, made pros and cons lists. And, you know, I realized that I wanted to go to an undergrad school with a strong CS reputation. So Duke and Rice, you know, I wasn't considering those at that point. It was mainly between UW and Berkeley. And I visited Berkeley. I thought I would commit after I visited. I actually didn't like it as much. The class size is thousands of students in their CS classes. You're not going to get the attention you get at Berkeley compared to the attention you get as a student at UW. And the living conditions as well, you know, cost of living is very expensive there. Some people may agree to go there, which is totally great school. But not personally for me. I want to do a higher education and I'd rather save that money. So yeah, looking into all those factors, taking time to decide and deciding what's right for you, because everyone's different.
I want to add on something real quick to that. So I guess this is a great opportunity if there are parents in the audience that want to be as involved as possible, but we're here giving you advice saying, don't get involved. One thing we can use your help on is, as early as possible, create those matrices. Like you mentioned, class size. There's so many factors that go into it. Class size, tuition, weather. I mean, for me, weather was a huge thing. Weather affects my mood. So maybe if you're a parent and you want to help your kid, but you don't know how to do it without being overbearing, we'll share some resources later, maybe on how we create our matrices, but you can start doing that research on just Googling what are all the details there.
So we'll open up questions for the parents.
I actually have a question just on the same topic you mentioned, right? Because we are self-selecting here, all four of you, and they are in UW, and fantastic. I mean, great job. But one of the things as parents we've heard is UW is a pretty selective school. It's not that easy getting into it, whereas it's out of state, you can get it easy into out of state schools. So the question was, what are the out of state schools were you seriously considering? And you know, pros and cons. I mean, obviously tuition is the one big factor. So let's even put tuition aside, but what were some of the other schools you would recommend other parents to even think about, rather than just, you know, UW obviously is the like number one, but what are things you can consider?
I think you can take it from me.
It's fine.
Over the table is fine.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, for me, I mean, I was about to go to Michigan, which like I was pretty happy about it. Like environment's great football team, right? And the culture was really nice. I was like, I'd be down to go to Michigan. Cost is kind of crazy though. Like you don't want to kill your parents' wallets. That being said, like great schools are great schools and it's definitely worth it. But I think UW for my family, the biggest thing was like, I mean, you want to pay like 30, 40K less. Yeah, go to UW type thing. And yeah, other than that, I mean, wow, it's been a long time. I mean, Michigan was the biggest one. There was some other, I think Michigan was the biggest one. There was like Texas A&M and stuff, but I honestly didn't apply to that many schools. Cali schools were pretty tough that year too. So
How many colleges did you apply to?
I applied to, I want to say 15 colleges, which is like, used to be an average number. Now I think it's like a lower average number. I mean, there's people that go like kind of crazy with it, but I don't know. Do whatever you got to do there.
Yeah. And I mean, UCs are a great option. It also depends on what major you want to do, right? Because different schools are good for different majors. So don't just look at the name, look at what's best for your program. For CS, mainly the schools I mentioned, and then UIUC was another option, Michigan, Vanderbilt. Yeah, no, that's in the South. I didn't want to go there. So yeah, look at what's best for your program. And yeah, consider tuition. That's a main thing. Yeah, and also look at other campus organizations you want to get a part of in the school. Look at research opportunities and organizations. One of the reasons I didn't go to Berkeley is because getting into clubs at Berkeley, that itself is another admissions process. There's a whole application you need to do. There's interview rounds. My friend is going there and she wasn't able to get into a single club she wanted to go to. And if you compare that to UW, it's relatively easier to get into clubs. So I'm able to actually pursue things I'm passionate about here in addition to my studies.
It's been really long since my application process, so I don't remember what my second and third schools were. I know for pre-med in general, are there any pre-med interested students in the audience? 1, 2. Okay, so for those of you that are pre-med, I would say look at schools that have the best university hospitals next to them. It's a lot easier to get into a hospital if you have the email ID of the universities. You can email the doctors. But for everyone else who's non pre-med as well, things that I considered, again, I said weather was really important to me. My mood is really impacted by weather. I didn't know that until COVID hit. And so that became a huge deal. My second option was Case Western in Ohio. I had fully committed. I had found a roommate. I didn't even feel like I needed to tour. And then I ended up going and I hated the 3 days I was there. I was like, I cannot survive in this weather. So that was big for me. Tuition wasn't really big. I think my parents understood that my journey was going to be an expensive journey regardless of where I went. But UNC Chapel Hill was another school I was looking at. I personally think UNC Chapel Hill is just the East Coast version of UW. Like it's very similar academics, very similar student body, very similar political ideals, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think everyone else covered the other things I was looking at. But for multidisciplinary, I would really recommend looking at public schools. People kind of like put public schools down for multidisciplinary education, but sometimes they're kind of the underdogs when it comes to flexibility in coursework and then networking opportunities. I really recommend look at the city you're going to school in. For pre-meds, I know Johns Hopkins is like a really popular name. I'm just using this as an example. Baltimore is 9 out of 10 times not a city you want to live in as an undergrad. So taking that example, look at the city that your university is going to go in because that will really influence your social life and cost of living and things like that too.
Yeah, so for me, let's see. I started off like once I decided that I wanted to do informatics, I started off by just going on websites, searching up best colleges for informatics. So if you know that this is a major that you want to do or whichever major you're doing, I would recommend look at the top schools that are good for your major. And for informatics, because it's a relatively like new field, there was very few colleges that had it. And so actually in that top 10 list, there were some colleges that aren't very well known, but because they're one of the few that have that program, they're still a good option for me out of state, and they're not, well, not, that's just an example that it doesn't need to be like top tier. You need to really cater it to your major and like what interests you. But basically I got into my informatics program at UC Irvine and at UIUC. So those were the main ones I was considering along with UW. And the informatics programs were, you know, very high, good programs. So when it came down to choosing other than tuition, I created a spreadsheet and I was like, these are the few things that I want in my schools. And for me, this whole process was like very much like, I don't know, like, I don't want to decide anything right now. Like, I could change my mind anytime. Because I switched from medical to info, I was still having that conflicting in my mind that like, oh, I might still want to go into medical. Or there's just so many options. I was considering like FBI at a point. Like, I was a very like confused person. So my main things were, of course, the major, if the program is good, technically related, the city that I'm in, like Frankie said, if they had like good tech resources, like startup, if it had a good like environment to, what's the word? Entrepreneurship, yes. Also research, study abroad, clubs, environment. Environment was so huge for me, which is why I didn't want to go to UW, but I'm gonna make the most of it. Environment's great, I'm sure it is. What else? And then the professors, the way that they teach class. For example, they're like, even within UW, the difference between CS classes and info classes are very project-based. And it's like you're working together, you're creating a project through those courses. Whereas like, for example, right now in high school, you guys have your classes that you take, and then if you want to do a passion project on the side, you have to put extra effort through it. But for UW, what attracted me most was that through those courses that you're taking, by the end of it, there's a requirement that you have to create this project, and you can even put it on your resume. So that's what really attracted me versus like CS. It's like, you know, you're learning the course, you might have some projects that you do, but it's much more like you're learning the course and you're learning the technical aspects of it. So that was sort of my environment that I wanted to do more hands-on, more good network, more project, more hands-on, so that like I really, I don't know, that's what inspired me. So that's what I was looking for, and that's how I, you know, decided. But I would say like if you're looking for, well, out-of-state schools, it's like also, I was like, oh, if I didn't want to do info and I wanted to do general, I should still like the school if I wanted to change my major. So I looked into, is it easy to switch majors? Which when you join their info sessions, you can ask them. Is it easy to get into a specific major? It's like sometimes there's something called like capped in UCs. Like when I was considering UC Irvine and UCSD has capped majors. So I completely like scratched that off my list because I wouldn't be able to switch a major. I wouldn't be able to get into a specific major like CS or info if I hadn't gotten it. And so there's just things like that that you should look into. And just,
What is the cap major?
Capped major basically at UCSD and other like colleges is that if you don't get in direct, it's practically impossible that you can switch, or you will get in once you're in the school, and they tell you that straight to your face. So that's how I crossed off UCSD off my list versus UC Irvine. You could do that. And then for UIUC and UC Irvine, UIUC I scratched off because the info program was also relatively new, so it wasn't that good. And then it came to UC Irvine and UW, and that's when tuition came in because they're both very good schools. And I'm like, if for the same thing, I'm gonna choose the broad option.
Yeah, she talked about CAP programs. I think UWCS has a similar reputation for that. Obviously this is really in-depth research, but if you have the time, I would definitely recommend. It's not a well-known thing to look for capped majors at universities, but definitely look in. If you go to the university and you happen to be a general admission student, make sure that your student will have the opportunity to transfer in. Because I know I have a lot of friends who ended up committing to UW, but then never got into the CS program because they prefer direct admits over within the university. So yeah.
I think UW has on their CS website itself, like they literally say to your face, if you don't get in CS and if you want to do CS, we recommend you go to another school. So if you want to take the risk of coming and applying to CS, go for it, but it's not recommended by the university.
Quick question. When you're writing your essay, is it generally advised that you connect your essay to the major you want to get into?
I can take on.
And repeat the question.
Yeah, so he asked in your essays, is it a good idea to connect like what you're talking about to the major you want to get into? I would say yes, it is good, but you want to like, don't let that be the be all end all. Like, yes, it's definitely better to have one essay talking about like your major and your experiences in the major, why you want to do it, but you don't want that to be your whole application. So there's an area there, you got to find that, but don't be too like, oh yeah, I'm fully into this and I have like no personality other than my major, because colleges don't love that. But if you do have some experiences in there, I would say it's definitely good to throw them in, because it's all about creating value to the community. Obviously, a little bit of experience adds a little bit of value. So
Yeah, like take everything with a grain of salt. I didn't talk about my major at all in my personal statement. I actually talked about robotics in my personal statement, which wasn't related to my major. I talked about my leadership experience there. Maybe you can use your personal statement as a reflection of you and use your supplemental essays to talk about your major specifically. So maybe that's one way you can go about it.
Yeah, so I would say like, I've seen some personal statements where like, it'll end, like the conclusion will be, this is what I did, and this is why this major is good for me. Obviously, it's not that straightforward, like they'll put it in a nice way, but it's really like, they'll talk about the extracurriculars that are very specific to their major rather than aspects and different extracurriculars that they did. I was the same. My personal statement was nothing related to my major. But for like colleges like the UC application or like other supplementals, you can, when you're looking at your personal statement, it shouldn't be like personal statement is one story, supplemental is one story, this supplemental is one story. Tie them all in together. And that's what I really like about supplementals, which UW was really tough. And I would say that's the main reason why I didn't get into informatics, is because the two supplementals don't ask you about your major or like why you want to do your major, versus other schools where I did get in, I was able to connect my personal statement to my major in a very organic way rather than being like two completely different things. So again, like look at the school that you're applying to. If they have that essay, then use it and connect it organically. And if they don't, for example, UW, if I were to go back and change something, I would probably add a bit more of like my technical aspect into my personal statement, just because UW didn't provide me with the opportunity like through the essays to specifically talk about my major. But yeah, I would say like really be diverse. My extracurriculars were like, I didn't do a ton of them, but the ones I did were like very unique. And so just in high school, like even if you're a freshman and you're not sure like what you want to do, really explore. And once you like, at least for me, like my parents did put me into things, but it's like what Uncle said, that once trying it out for 6 months, it was yes or nay. Like I'm very stubborn. So if I don't like something, I'll say no to it and I'll fight with them for it. That's what I did, but some things I did stick with, and really finding that what interests you. Don't be scared to try new things, because that could become the core of your application of who you are. There's some very like unexpected things that you could end up liking. So yeah.
Can I add one thing?
This is just my personal opinion. But if you're applying to like really competitive major programs at schools, I would say err on the side of caution and address that major somehow in your essay. It doesn't have to be the main focus. Somehow tie that theme into your future career goals. Because they want to see like, what is your intention applying to this program? Why didn't you just apply general then? Why do you want to do CS, or why do you want to do info? So that's my perspective. I also read like an entire book of like admissions personal statements of people who got into Ivy Leagues. It's a very common pattern for people to have a story that doesn't relate to their major at all, but somehow they tie it into their major at the very end. So that's something usually a lot of successful people do, but also I have seen other essays where they haven't mentioned it at all. So it's all about whether you want to err on the side of caution or not, which I do recommend you do, but it's up to you.
So I think to answer your question, make the theme of your essay your personal brand. Tie in your major across all of the essays, like your personal statement plus supplementals. Sprinkle the theme everywhere. Don't make your major the entire theme of your essay.
You have a follow-up?
Oh, no, she answered that. So.
Okay. I had a follow-up question. So quickly related to this. So if the personal statement is not talking about the majors, is it based on a prompt? Does UW give a prompt for a personal statement?
Or the personal statement is the same across like every college, but UW has a supplemental prompt that's really different.
I see. But for the personal statement, like what are you trying to convey? Like if you're not talking about major, like what's the story?
So personal statement is through the Common App, or there's another name.
Coalition.
There's two platforms that you apply to schools in. Those will ask you for a 500 to 600 word essay about you. They'll have themes. They release those around August. The seniors in the room probably already have read them. If you have 11th graders, they'll come out in August. Some of them are like, what is a moment in your life that you overcame an adversity? What's the moment in your life where you stepped up to a role? And then some of the themes will be like, what's something that's so random about you that you're really passionate about? So personal statement, they just give you themes. One of them is also just open-ended, write whatever you want. So it's just kind of like talk about yourself. That's what the personal statement is. And then when you select your specific university in the application, that university will have 2 to 3 to maybe even 5 essays that they ask for specifically. The personal statement goes to every college you apply to, and then each college in itself will have anywhere to 3 to 4 different essays. So yeah.
Just quickly, I want to say one thing. So basically there's 8, I remember, your personal statement that you can choose out of on the Common App or Coalition. I would say look at them, but don't start writing your essay based on like, oh, this prompt is cool, let me start writing it. This is the most impactful story of my life. Just don't look at it once, put it away, start writing whatever that you think is going to show yourself off, or, show your personality off the best. And then once you're done writing the essay, go back to the prompts and see which ones fits it the most. For me, I wrote my essay and I was like, okay, none of the prompts fit, so I'm going to choose there's an other option. Because that way you're just getting the best essay out there rather than constricting yourself from the beginning.
Sorry, Mahendra Garu, you have a question?
She asked.
Okay.
I'm considering applying to UW, so I just kind of want to know a little bit about student life, like what are classes like, professors, clubs, research opportunities in specific, and like are there any options to go on abroad or anything?
Are you pre-med?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind if I start off and then you guys can take over from this one?
Be considerate on
Can you
time.
please-
Yeah. I'll be really quick with my answer. So she was asking, what is student life and opportunities like at UW? Look at their website. I'd say that's the biggest thing. If you keep digging through the website, you'll end up finding stuff on there that are not commonly known. For pre-med, it's a majorly pre-med and CS schools. There will be so many different pre-med opportunities. Research opportunities are endless. You normally get them through your professors. So if you go to a class, get to know the professor, that's how you'll find out to work in their lab, things like that. And we also have a lot of hospitals around us, like Harborview, UW hospitals, things like that. So you're good there pre-med wise. In general, student life, I would say UW is a very work hard, play hard environment. Greek life is pretty prominent on campus, but it's a healthy balance. There's not a lot of toxic environments, I would say, at UW, and it's a lot of students who are very passionate, very smart, but also really prioritize their social life and balance. And so I think at any point in time, I truly believe that you can find a community that fits you based on your balance for work life.
And there's a website called Dogpath. So if you search up like what classes you want to take, you can actually see the grade distribution, like how well people do in the classes. So that kind of gives you an idea of like, okay, I'm taking 2 hard classes, I want a third easy class. You can see which classes people do well in. Another thing is rate my professors, because different professors grade differently, the level is harsher. And people have a lot of opinions to say about professors. So you can read all of that if you want to look into it.
Class sizes don't get too big. I'd say your biggest class is like 500, 600, which is pretty big, and then it gets smaller as you go up through the years.
It's only the first 2 years, right? When the class is
I
so
mean,
big.
even that, it's very rare. Like, it's very rare for you to have 500 people in your class. It's like the major prereq requirement.
Mostly the basics, like English 101.
Super basic, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to tack on a little bit more stuff. As far as communities that was talked about, truly believe you can find like any community you like in UW. Ultimately, the value of college is you want to surround yourself with people that are going to make you better and push you. And I think for everybody, like there are those people out there. So it's a really great place with a lot of multifaceted people. Also, nobody really talks about this, but the nature, man, I just love like the environment. It's just super nice to be in and just walk around and like for your mental health too, it's great to like just go take walks sometimes. Like a lot of colleges might not have that. Like you might just be in like a place that's like super bustling and stuff, which like parts of UW can be, but you definitely want to like experience that environment. It's just really nice physically to be there.
I think UW is one of the only urban big public schools that's right in the middle of a huge city that still kind of has a secluded feel. Like NYU, places like that, or like they don't really have a college campus area. UW is definitely closed off to itself.
So, different question. Timeline was which grade got start grading application, which month of the year application starts, and so selection process like all comes at the same time, or like you have to pick whatever comes first. And also other thing tuition wise, like it's all paid you can for 4 years, or like they say inflation, the fees went up or something like that. So to pick a college which is fee tuition is reasonable, but after second year don't.
I normally do my finances with my dad when it comes to tuition, so he can rub it in my face that it's really expensive. Inflation happens, tuition does increase. I wouldn't. COVID was obviously an anomaly. A lot of rates increased when we still stayed at home. One thing I do want to say that no one really talked about, please apply to as many third-party scholarships as you can. They are really helpful when it comes to cutting down the price. I basically went through my first year at UW for only $5,000 because I applied to like a lot of random bank scholarships, things like that. When do you start in the process? When did you guys start? I started really late. When did you start?
I started well, I started drafting my personal statement in April of my junior year, and I decided to have that completely done, finalized by August 1st. So that supplements open on August 1st. So I wanted my full attention to be on those. About when you hear back from colleges. So there's an early round and a regular round. There's something called early decision. So it's a process where if you have a 100% would go if you got in, you can apply early decision, which is a binding contract. So if you get in, you'll hear from them December 1st-ish. If you get in, you have to go. So I only recommend you do that if you're 100% sure I want to go to the school.
And if you've toured that school beforehand, you change a lot as a person over the 9 months. So if you've known that you want to go to that school since you were like 5 years old, I'd recommend that. Otherwise, I have a lot of friends who did early decision and regretted doing that and ended up going to a school they didn't want to go to.
Yeah. So if you get rejected from your ED school, that has no impact. You can continue, choosing from your other colleges that you get into. If you don't want the binding option, but you still want to apply early to a private school, some private schools have early action. School was Stanford, so I applied early there. It wasn't binding, so it was appealing to me. I was like, okay, I'll have the option. I don't have to go. I didn't get in. They no, we don't want you. Okay. But yeah, so you can do that, restrictive early action for private schools. Other public schools have early action programs as well. So you'll hear back from them in January, and then regular decision schools, you'll hear back in March, April. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of have nothing to add those. Yeah.
Essays wise, things open in August, so you don't really have to start submitting them until then. If you like to jump the gun like Aditi did and get your stuff ready by April of your junior year, that works. Otherwise, I didn't start writing mine until October, so I was on the other end. Whatever works for your family.
Yeah, quickly, I started mine probably right when school started, so end of summer. just know yourself. If you are not good at writing, revisions from different people. Also, like, just like be strong in like what you want your essay to be and take the advice like with a grain of salt, but like really give yourself time. I consider me starting at the beginning of school year late. You're be expected to like put in time to it. So maybe like senior year, sometimes some people take less classes, some people kind of cut down on like extracurriculars. So just sort of
So I'm applying for multiple university or jobs, something like this, right? So
Yeah.
for more years, more assessment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great resources online, like College Vine is a great website that not only writes down what the prompts are, but gives you ideas on how to answer them. So yeah, you can find a lot of resources online on when the timeline is and how to pace yourself.
Well,
Typically, how big the essays are, like, for instance.
They have requirements. They have requirements on word limits.
we'll collect all the resources, I think, whatever panelists are mentioning, and then I'll make sure that.
Yep, we are taking the email IDs of all of you, whoever leaving, just leave it with Aarti there. Then we will send, we'll create a blog of today's session and put as much content as possible. Again, these are their experience. We are not experts, we are parents. Just putting everything into a blog, we'll see if it can help each other. That's it.
We'll take a couple more questions, but I see there are quite a few questions on the chat also. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think we'll take a few.
So, quick question. So how do you help your kid to find a true passion, right? Because some kids probably they like it all. They like multiple disciplines, like leadership or business or computer science. So they might like multiple things, and like what Praniti was mentioning, that you don't want to end up doing so many things that you burn out because you have to even balance your grades and all of those scores. So what helped you find a specific passion, or as a parent, what advice do you guys have for the parents to help kids find that passion so they can dive into that during their high school years rather than doing everything that they think they like that?
So do you want to start with that? Because you
Yeah.
talked about you were the opposite end where your parents didn't push you to anything.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, that's a great question. I would say this is like a kind of a big thing for CS, but a great like self-starting thing to do in CS is like a project that you might want to build or something, right? Like oftentimes introducing your kid to different areas of things they want to do can just be like, oh, well, this might be a cool idea. If it's CS, you'd be like, oh, why don't you like try to build something like this, see where it takes you. And I mean, I did that. My dad would send me like all these like Microsoft Learn resources I never looked at and like things like that. But there's a lot of things like that you can just do to like pique kids' curiosity. Another big thing is just connecting your kid with like older people that maybe like have it figured out, or like, you know, in 12th grade or something like that, that are like doing things, like running things and know what they want to do. Just to talk to them a little bit, never hurts to get good mentorship. Another great thing to do is to like organizations like VT Seva specifically, where like if you can just like bring your kid into an organization like this, there's so many like people that do so many different things. And this is environments like this are ones where people like have great ideas and act on ideas. And it's really a constructive community. And I think just putting your kid around a constructive community is probably the best thing that there is for them, because you can learn from anybody. You can take the best things from the best people you know, try to incorporate that in yourself. I mean, I know that's what I try to do with people that I used to look up to that were here before me. And yeah, communities like this are kind of just gold. So yeah.
You should also take note of your child's learning patterns and see what they're best at, right? So let's say a kid is good at math and science. There's so many different directions you can go. So kind of noticing, are they good at memorization? Are they good at more spontaneity, trial and error, experiment type things? Kind of noticing what are their strengths and weaknesses in their learning. And then there are different career paths that are obviously, you know, they relate more to your learning strengths. If they like reading a lot, maybe pushing them in the humanities direction. So both inside and outside the classroom, there will be signals that show what your kid is actually interested in.
I think since you mentioned having a kid that's like interested in a lot of things, something that I wish my parents had encouraged me to do in high school, middle school, because I love everything. You can ask my mom, like give me 5 hours with something and I'll start liking it. I wish I'd kept a journal, and I started reflecting what I liked about things. I think if maybe your kid can start keeping a journal and you sit with them when they're done with the activity and say, what did you like about this? Why did you like it? Over time, they'll start to phase out the things they don't want to journal about, and it'll just stick to things that are genuinely nice for them. Also, for me, I did robotics for 7 years. What's great for me as a person, but I don't use it at all. I wish I used that time for something else. I think if I had journaled, I would have realized I wasn't getting as much as I was putting my time in for. So it can be like a self-reflecting process there.
So, like I said, I was very confused and I wanted to do many things that did not relate to each other at all, like till the point where I was applying. So I think some things that might help is like one, like for beginning stages, like 9th grade, see what their strengths are, but like their interests. It's not like learning strengths, but like their interests, and see what they can take with that. For example, like my brother, he really likes like building stuff. Not really likes it, but like for example, like if we got something from IKEA, he would like build it right away. He wouldn't need any help. So then maybe you want to push that into engineering. Sort of correlating small things like that can be very small. And even if it's something that's like maybe you're like, oh, they're not gonna make money in it or something, encourage them, because if someone's passionate about them, you can mix two fields together and do something very unique and be the first one to make something, or be unique in your own field, and that way you'll be successful automatically, or you'll just excel in that unique field, or whether that's whatever you want to call it. And then the other thing is like what I did when I was interested in dentistry, medical, FBI, tech, who knows what else, is I went on like a rabbit hole of like YouTube videos and just like watched a day in my life as a blah, 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 and saw if that's what I wanted to do, saw the path that led to it. And also like maybe as a parent, you can look at, there's like talks that people do that they'll like invite industry professionals or even like entrepreneurs that like hold their own, like, here's a little introduction to innovation that you could expose them to. So just like there's many opportunities if you just go down the rabbit hole of the internet, you'll find a lot of them.
So just adding a parent perspective, having 2 kids, one is wanted to try everything and anything. The other one has his own choices. He is very limited, right? So as a parent, what I understood is just let them fly, right? They might do mistakes, like she mentioned, 7 years of robotics. We had to drive her every single city. Did she take it up? No. Right? Let them just fly, let them fall down, let them get up. That's okay. Maximum 1 year, 2 years, but they will find their way out. That as a parent, I learned.
Yeah, just adding on really quickly to what Auntie said. We've been talking about knowing your major, right? If you like just want to go in general and you have no idea what you want to do, please don't force yourself into a major. It's okay. Like there's 90% of the people in college don't know what they want to do. Like I said before, everyone has their own educational journey. Just trust that you're going to find what you're passionate about when you get the right environment and opportunities that come to you. And it's okay. Like I know there might be pressure and people around you that might have it earlier, and that's discouraging, but just trust that there's always a plan for you and you'll find it.
I would like to, you got it. Okay. So I would like to understand what's the difference between, or the pros and cons of running Start, West, normal college, like the undergrad, when you feel it's interested in pre-med.
So my path was a little bit different. I started running Start because I was pre-med, and then I ended up discovering business. So I got my associates in business. But very like overarchingly, what happens with pre-med is applying to medical school, you have a certain list of classes you have to take, regardless of where you go to undergrad. Running Start is a great way to get those done. You have to take chemistry. They don't care where you take chemistry. So it would be much better for you to take chemistry at a school with only 30 people in the classes and only $5,000 tuition, instead of chemistry at somewhere like UW, where it's 300 people in the class and $30,000 tuition. So I think that's the biggest difference for Running Start when it comes to pre-med. You can take a lot of the they call them weed out classes. Basically, they make them extremely difficult so people who aren't fit to become a doctor drop out. And that's the way that works in any pre-med school. So Running Start is a good way to avoid that. If you know your student is someone who tends to crumble under pressure or needs more personal attention, Running Start helps your child get that to the weed out mindset of the bigger universities. And like Upendra Uncle mentioned earlier, there's a lot of electives. So maybe you're like, Yeshi, your kid wants to do pre-med, they go to Running Start and they decide this is not for me. It gives you a lot more space to do electives. Running Start happens on a quarterly system, so your classes change every 12 weeks. So you can take a lot more classes in Running Start than you can at the school. Yeah, as long as you work with your high school counselor to make sure you still graduate high school, you can take whatever classes you want. There's no restriction there. So if you have a major, even like CS, if you want to get your math and science classes out of the way, you can do it. Or if you're just want to explore, you can do that too.
I did school 2 years and at the end you get an associate's degree. I did it in the general arts and sciences, but there's like a bio one, there's one for CS, there's one for business. So if your child is like, I want to do it like for sure, and even if they don't, they'll like find out in the first quarter like I did, like I found out. But if they're really motivated by it, you can get an associate's degree in biology and computer science, and that way you'll save money, you'll save time. Like for medical, that's a great thing, is you save years, and you'll get good grades because you still need to go into, you have to get into a med school, and for that your grades really matter, so your GPA will be higher. So just things like that, it's very helpful to cut down years if it's something that you're just sure you're gonna do. And to also just like learn more. I feel like it's so much easier to learn in a less stressful environment rather than, you know, a college that's like beat up.
So, I'm a senior, I'm applying to colleges as well. So one of the questions I had, actually I have two questions. One of them was how the value of passion projects in your essay, like does it depend on how many people it affects, its use, or even like how much fame it gains, or?
Yeah, so I'd say what's more important than the number of people that use it is why you decided to do it in the first place, right? Because colleges, more than looking at your success, they're looking for potential, right? As Srihari mentioned before, you're going to gain the technical skills, the actual knowledge you need to work in the real world after you graduate. But to be successful, you need to have a growth mindset, and you need to be able to persevere, look at problems in your community, and come up with a solution. So, but make sure it's genuine, right? Make sure you're able to actually talk about it in an essay, not just what you made, but why you made it. It's always good to have an impact, you know, statewide impact, national impact, but I wouldn't say that's required. Just looking for you being genuine.
Yeah, I just want to add a quick thing and just break it down, because as someone that just went through the process, you have your activities list, correct? And then you have your essays. So for passion projects, if you did, you know, make that impact, even if you didn't, it's okay. But if you did make that impact, that's where you talk about it in your activities list. Like, I impacted these many people, or I made this app. You talk very technical, so it's very short, and that's where you can say it. You don't need to talk about the number of people that in your essays, whereas your essays, you know, you'll talk more about the process, what you personally do from that project, how it impacted you as a person. So just keep the technical stuff to the after the essays that you kind of maximize.
Can I add one more thing? So a general rule to keep in mind, I mean, it's different for everyone, but in your essays, you want to keep it as engaging as possible, right? But the technical aspect, the steps you did to make the app, yes, it's good, but there's probably some kid using ML to cure cancer, right? Like, our passion projects aren't going to be that fancy, but what is fancier is the actual story behind why you want to create it. So focus 90% of your essay on the actual story of what motivated you, and 1 to 2 sentences on, I made this app to solve this problem, and then potential impact in the future. Yeah.
Remember, they're picking you as a person, not you as an academic.
Okay, so like more like you have to.
Yeah, they want to know about your personality.
Just one more question, right, yeah, so do you have to like, have different stories for each and every college you just use this?
You recycle essays.
Yeah,
Answered it.
I started my application on October 15th. I actually started it 2 days before my first submission. By start, I mean, I didn't even make extremely late. I rinsed and recycled every essay. What I did is I wrote down what are the 5 main things about me I want to communicate to a college. And I just played mix and match. Like after your first 3 schools, you basically write about 15 different essays. Just like play like jigsaw and match which one shows what personality you want to showcase to the school. You don't need to rewrite all of them.
And do you like want to focus more on kind of answering the prompt or like talking about yourself?
That's the balance you have to find or figure. That's what makes it really difficult. They don't really teach you in high school how to talk about yourself in an essay, so you need to learn how to balance who you are as a person to answering what the prompt is. So that's kind of where Yeshi's advice comes in. Write about yourself and then find the prompt that fits, but for the supplements, it can get a bit more difficult.
Yeah, so start with your personal essay. That'll set a good foundation on how you want to carry your story out to supplementals. And then for yourself.
Answer the prompt versus your personality.
Okay, yeah. So I would say, I would recommend, going to your friends that, have similar whatever major and stuff, or just people that, you want to get into this college, read a lot of essays. That way you get a sense of how people created that connection between answering a prompt and getting yourself involved. I would say, like, it's a lot of recycle. Like I took stuff like a paragraph from this essay, a paragraph from this essay. And the thing is you'll recycle the content, but for the prompt, it is like different schools will have similar essays, but the end, like the conclusion is where you answer it, right? So that you'll probably have to change per college, but the content might be the same, but make sure that conclusion, that's what will make it.
So we are almost at the time, probably they'll come.
We'll
but
take one last question.
Yeah, one last question, and then, whatever questions that we have, maybe we can take it outside, maybe 1 or 2 questions.
We can take them outside, or we can take your note cards if you want to write them down on the
And
note
then
cards.
email you back, if you can give all the email IDs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
you
pass
give
it
your
on.
email ID
No.
on?
Yeah, we have a note passing it on, so just make sure
You can go ahead and ask question, Anna.
So, did you guys have any like internships when you were in high school, and did that help you when you were to get into whatever college?
It's my favorite question.
It's a good question, yeah.
Can you? look
Yeah.
this for a second? Yeah, so I did a research, sorry, I did a research internship at UC Santa Barbara. You can apply to. I applied to a lot of research because people really like research, but yeah, I did that. That definitely helped because, like, I know I said it's great to, like, talk about other things than your major, but a lot of people here were talking about how you can tie in your personal brand with your major, and that's effectively how I did that, because I was like, well, I really turned into a technical leader in this internship because I learned how to coordinate things among like a team of like developers, things like that, and that really factored into it. So yeah, I would say it helps. But again, colleges are looking more so for how your brand grew and developed through that experience, not so much like, oh man, this is the of languages, like come on, man, like we really care about that. Like it's more of personality wise, how did they shape you, how did they change you? But yeah.
I know that a lot of parents think it's great to have an internship going into college. I guess the reason, because it's like a guaranteed like showcase of your expertise. I like how Srihari was mentioning, but also what Aditi showed you earlier. I personally believe it's a lot more influential if you start a project of your own than go to an internship that someone else created, if that makes sense. An internship, they create the entire curriculum for you, they create the structure for you, you just have to be there and you'll learn. Whereas if you did something like Aditi, where she created an app for helping like linguistics in Tamil, or Srihari, he created a camp himself, it shows a lot more about your capabilities if you can create that structure from ground up. Internships are great. I personally think from everyone that I've heard has had like insanely successful college experiences, they've often had experiences of doing things from scratch more than just the rinse and repeat internships. Because even from a college perspective, what differentiates you from the other 50 people that did that internship, right? So I guess that's my 2 cents on that.
An internship, it's not complement, right? Like if you were already passionate about one area, like for example, I made the Tamil app. So I thought if I maybe get an internship around this area, like language translation, right? So I got a computational linguistics research internship. Nothing super fancy. It was like a no-name company, right? Like they were in their like ground starting phases, but I learned a lot and it was something I was able to talk about in my application, and it supplemented an interest that I already had. It wasn't just some random internship that had nothing to do with the rest of my stuff.
Awesome. I think that concludes, I think, a huge round. I learned a lot, even though, I already had 2 kids go through the college and everything, I still learned quite a bit. I hope this was useful to you. We plan to bring, for example, these kids, they're going to form a club at UW. So as more kids come into UW, we have a bigger presence and hopefully, I hope they come back. They come back and do this more often. Thank you so much. Yeah, and then if you have more questions,
If
please.
they can just stand up, we'll have the 4 panelists here and we'll take a picture.
Yes, we'll do that. And if you have more questions, sorry, you can leave the note card. We'll definitely get those answered. And then I'll also post a link to all the resources which they talked about. And I have all the emails because you all registered to the sign up.
Yeah, if you haven't provided your email address, please.
Yeah. So we'll definitely get you those in the next few days. Thank you so much.
And at the end, if you have any individual questions, just come up to us.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
All 4 of you go there and we'll take a picture. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Good job.
Wait, how? No, Pranati. ఇది disconnect చేశారు.
Yeah. Should I turn it off?
Yeah.
Stop recording? Or should I close the meeting?
Stop recording.